Hey folks, thanks for stopping by. I am so happy to finally show you this new Planta greenhouse. We've spent the better part of this year working on this project. I even have some crops growing already. It's been a good season extender so far. So I really hope to grow year round. This year is pretty much going to be trial and error, a little bit of experimentation, see what we can do, what kind of heat we need. Eventually I would like to trench in, we have natural gas, I would like to trench in gas, electric, as well as frost-free water. But that was just a bit much for the wallet this year. And so we built a raised bed that holds a lot of the topsoil that was in this area where we excavated to begin with. And that acts as a bit of a heat sink. So far, we've had several frosts, even below freezing temperatures, and it has consistently maintained about 6 or 8 degrees higher than the outdoor temperature. So let's take a walk and I'll tell you all about it. So we spent our first days measuring out the area and staking it, putting some paint lines down. And then we had to set grade. We had actually a 10-inch drop from the back of the greenhouse to the front of the greenhouse. So we spent a while setting grade to get everything equalized. We first had to excavate the topsoil out of place, and I put that aside because I was going to use that in the raised beds a little bit later because I knew it was really good soil. And we brought in some fill dirt in order to pack everything down so that we had a solid foundation. Then we decided to pour a concrete footer to have a good level base to begin. So then we brought in some natural gravel. This matches the gravel around our house, and we use that as the other half. It does have landscape fabric underneath so that water will drain through it. And the stone also acts as a bit of a heat sink. And then we began prepping for the wood foundation by adding a layer of 2x6s that would then anchor into the concrete. And then we added a wood foundation and this raised bed so that I could grow hopefully year-round, but at least extend my growing seasons. We don't have all of the heating and cooling and things figured out. I decided to line the raised bed with landscape fabric to minimize contact between the soil and the wood. We filled the raised bed with the soil that was originally excavated from this area. It had sat in a pile and the grass layer had decomposed in it, so it was in pretty good shape. I sifted through everything just to remove the large clumps. Now these bows were each full of so many screws and nuts and bolts, and lots of time went into putting all of those together. And then we, of course, had to assemble it onto the foundation. We must tape every joint. And this metal strip is supposed to join the roof panel with the side panels. And then we finally began working on the side panels. The polycarbonate had a side that was UV resistant, and so it was recommended to leave a bit of that wrapping on until you assembled the piece to make sure that it was facing the right direction. And then it was finally time to start bringing soil around the perimeter just to level things out. And so then he worked pretty hard on the end walls. You had to do a lot of trimming to get everything to fit just right. Adding the weather seal was next. It was a pretty tight fit. And finally, we got to the doors, the space of the two 6x6s plus a 2x6. And so that was about a foot of space we had to fill. And so we ordered an extra window to match the top window with the door and put that at the bottom and added that ourselves. And it was a perfect addition. We wanted it to look like it was part of the original structure. And I think we achieved that goal because it looks really, really nice. And so we added a lot of extra tape where it wasn't called for in the instructions to help prevent leaks. After we added the tape, we added the bands to the top to hold everything into place. With those leaks, we noticed we had to do some caulking. And so we caulked all around the base between the concrete and the wood and in the seam between the 6x6s. And that eliminated most of the leaks. We still have a few that we're working on. Next, I began to level everything out to prepare for the rock border filled with more gravel. And this is where landscape fabric shines. It works really well under gravel to suppress weeds. On the north side, the path in between the shed and the greenhouse, we're just going to have grass. Make it really nice and easy to mow, nice and clean. And we used our preferred mix of perennial rye and Kentucky bluegrass. One of my favorite things about the greenhouse, believe it or not, are these steps. But we copied the style that we used around the house. It's good to have the steps level, but it's important to have just a slight downward slope to funnel any water away from the structure. We usually balance each other out with our own strengths and weaknesses. And I was quite pleased with the end result. It provides a nice walking path as well as preventing soil erosion since there are no gutters. And then came the automatic vents. These arms have a wax that expands at a certain temperature, which you can control to some degree, and they open and close on their own. And one of my favorite finishing touches in the greenhouse is a seat for the raised bed. We had to use blue painter's tape to mark where all the screws were below, just so that we didn't come into contact with any. And it gets pretty windy around here sometimes, so when I do have all the doors open, it's very nice to have these hook and eye fasteners to keep everything secure. And there's the first vent. We have a few more to install. And we recently put together this nice little potting bench for when I start seeds. Right now it's not even 50 degrees outside, and it is 77 in here, and that's with this end completely open, the vent, and then the top window down here at the other end. I actually started with the topsoil that was excavated from this place, so it is real soil. And while it's not recommended to put real soil into containers, especially container beds, this soil was actually mixed with lots of organic matter to begin with, and there's also plenty of soil life in here to keep things a little bit aerated and to prevent that compaction. And I make my own compost, and so I will be adding a layer of compost every year, as I probably in the spring when I put new plants in here, or throughout the year. And so of course that's organic matter that will continually decompose, so I will be adding a fresh layer every year. These dividing strips here are just to separate and to hold the sides together so that the front doesn't bow out. It doesn't go all the way down. And each of the bed is open to the soil below. And it's nice to have this little bench seating here, especially as I get older and I can just sit to relax and take a rest. We tried to design it so that I can just reach over to harvest plants. I just hope you enjoyed the tour, and thanks so much for supporting this channel. I appreciate you stopping by.